This is Entertainment for Review, and today I'm going to be taking a look at another episode of Boy Meets World. Today's episode is Season 1, Episode 3, Father Knows Less. In this episode, Corey and his father are planning to go see the Blue Angels until Corey's father's assistant manager from the grocery store he works at comes and tells him there's an emergency and he has to get down to the store right away. This leaves Corey disappointed and Alan promising Corey that he'll make it up to him at a later time.
I have time with my dad. You step out of this house, I'm on my way to my first ballet lesson.
I promise you, I'll make it up to you.
And that later time doesn't take too long, because later that night, when the Phillies are playing a game on the West Coast, or approaching a no-hitter, Alan wakes up Corey so he can come down and watch the rest of the game with him. And that game doesn't end till after midnight. Result is, Corey is very tired the next day in school and falls asleep during a test in Mr. Feeney's class. Ends up getting a 0 on the test because he only answered one question out of 40 and got that one question wrong. He tries to explain why he's so tired to Mr. Feeney, but that does not help the situation at all. When Corey gets home, he tells his father about what happened with the test, and Corey's mother Amy is of course not very happy when she finds out that Corey was up after midnight on a school night. So Alan goes out to talk to Mr. Feeney. Very convenient to have your son's teacher as a next door neighbor. This is the start of the disagreement for the episode, as when he talks to Mr. Feeney, he asks if Corey can take a makeup test later in the week after he explains things again. Mr. Feeney says that there will be no makeup test and that the grade will stand as is. They're both coming from very different points of this disagreement. Alan was trying to spend some time with his son, which he felt he hadn't been doing enough of recently, and had to take the opportunity to do it when he could. And Mr. Feeney was coming from the perspective of an educator who's responsible for the education of multiple students in his class, and as a teacher of 35 years, as he says, has heard almost every excuse in the book there is for why a student failed a test. They largely end up at an impasse when Mr. Feeney says that Alan doesn't understand this. Alan says that Mr. Feeney doesn't understand what it's like to try to schedule time to be with your son because Mr. Feeney doesn't have a son. This does seem to upset Mr. Feeney, and he ends the conversation. Alan is pretty upset with Mr. Feeney until he talks to his wife, who points out that it is partially his fault as well. Tensions were good, but he can't mess up Corey's schedule in order to make up time that he lost previously. Planning to take Corey to play tennis until he's interrupted again by his assistant manager with yet another emergency at the store and has to leave. On his way out, he tells Corey that Mr. Feeney was right.
I shouldn't have kept you up late last night. Mr. Feeney was right.
That night, Corey is out back playing some tennis by himself when he accidentally knocks the ball over to Mr. Feeney's side of the fence. He goes to retrieve it. He's stopped by Mr. Feeney, who's outside having an evening drink, and he invites Corey to join him and have a drink. Corey, thinking this is alcohol, accepts, but it's just apple juice. And Corey gets a bit of a mixed message from Mr. Feeney, who also believes that Corey's father was not entirely in the wrong. Mr. Feeney recounts the time from his childhood when he wanted to stay up late to hear the president on the radio to announce the end of World War II. However, his father wouldn't let him stay up and made him go to bed. Mr. Feeney tells Corey that spending time with one's father is important, and when Corey asks him how does he know because his father made him go to bed, he says that's precisely why he does know.
It is important that a boy spend time with his father.
But how do you know that? Your dad didn't let you stay up with him.
That's precisely why I do know.
Alan returns home, he sends Corey inside and has a conversation again with Mr. Feeney, and they both seem to have a mutual understanding at this point. He says he's going to try to get Corey to bed each night when he's supposed to be. Mr. Feeney tells him that he wants him to know that if he did have a son, he would take similar opportunities to wake his son up at night to do something. I like this end of their dispute here because it's acknowledging that the other person's side of the disagreement had validity. While they may have disagreed, they can both understand it. The episode ends with Corey asking if he can stay up again to watch the Phillies game that night, and his father says no, because he'll be there to tell him about it the next morning. This is a very good episode with a very good lesson to learn, and that's that situations in life aren't always very black and white. Sometimes there is some gray area. Alan wanted to make it up to Corey and do something fun with him, but it caused him to have trouble in school. He had good intentions, but not probably the best execution. Feeney is a long-term teacher responsible for the education of many students. Probably has heard all the excuses. Has to do his due diligence as Corey's teacher. Even he does acknowledge when he's talking to Corey later that education is not about one day in school, one test. It's about cumulative effect of being in school long-term. Like I said, I like how both sides in this episode may disagree, but they come around and are able to see the other person's viewpoint and perspective. Being able to look at things from both sides is a very important thing. This is a very good episode. I would score it at a 8.5 out of 10. Let me know your thoughts on Boy Meets World Season 1, Episode 3, Father Knows Less in the comment section below. Please be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel, and keep an eye out for my next video coming soon.